In this video, you're a writer? Great! Do my kid's homework and give her free English lessons. Entitled airline passenger tried helping themselves to my upgraded seat, and try to be lazy and get me to do your job. I'll let you fail. You're a writer? Great! Do my kid's homework and give her free English lessons. Mildly useful information. In my country, it's customary to live with your parents until you get married. Please don't give me shit for this. They're lovely and I adore living with them. Background. At the time of this story, I, at the time 24, female, was riding a career high. I was working for a famous, in my country, screenwriter, and we were doing projects for Netflix and Amazon. I put writing my book on hold for this. Before anyone asks, both shows went into development hell and will not be released internationally in any case. My parents and I were moving into a new fancy apartment building that has its own cafe. You can't access the cafe unless you're a resident or have been given a pass. I was in there one day, getting coffee and chatting with some other residents while waiting for some things to be delivered. You all know what ED and EK means. If you thought of erectile dysfunction, I wish he had it, so I would not have had to suffer through this ordeal. A nice couple was telling me about how much I was going to like living there and how nice everyone in the building is when in walked ED with EK, 8-year-old girl, in tow. A cold wind blew in and my steaming cup of coffee turned tepid. ED, who I've never seen before, points at me and says, "Ink in the water. You're the famous writer." I writhed under this accusation as I was in no way famous and had no idea who this lunatic pointing at me was. The couple backed away and EK runs at me and hugs my legs. Thrown off balance, I dropped coffee onto my foot, which turned back to scalding the moment it touched my foot. Howling in pain, I hobbled to a sofa and sat down as the staff scrambled to get me some ice. EK still had a death grip on me and I had to pry her off. The nice couple was handing me napkins when ED plowed through them and pointed at me again. ED, "Ink in the water. You look just like your mom. I met her in the lobby and she told me you're a writer and that you were here. This is my kid, Miss Kleptomaniac." EK was now setting down her backpack next to me. Me, "I'm sorry, I have no idea who you are." ED, "I'm Mr. Asshat, so since you're a writer, you can do EK's homework for her and give me your number so I can set up a time for you to give her English lessons every day." This is about when I thought I was having a stroke. I'm a teacher now? Is this kid opening up a textbook? Me, "I think you have the wrong person. I don't teach." ED, "I know, but you can start now. It's our duty to teach the youth, so I'll just pick EK up in an hour, okay? I actually have to run. I'll get your number from your mom." And he walked out. Walked out, leaving me with this loud, belligerent girl who insisted on going through my purse. She then proceeded to shove her homework at me and demand that I do it while she played on her iPad. Spinning with pain and confusion, I pried my purse away from EK, who immediately began to scream. I hobbled out of there, wincing, while EK stayed inside and demanded that the staff give her cookies. I made it to the lobby where ED was terrorizing others. He looks at me and apparently loses what was left of his fragile mind. ED, "What are you doing here? I told you to finish EK's homework. Did you leave her alone in the cafe?" Me, "Yeah, that's not my job, and yes, I did. I need to get something on my foot. You can go get her." ED proceeds to bar my way to the elevator and demands that I wait until he gets EK so we can all go up to my apartment and I can do her homework there. This is where I kind of lost it. I yelled for security and they came running, took one look at me leaning against the wall in pain and escorted me into the elevator. ED was yelling at me the whole time, saying he would be up there soon. So, here is where it gets worse. In the elevator, security informed me that he was a realtor and not a resident. He would not be allowed up to my apartment after what I told them. Upstairs, my parents were horrified and my mother apologized for telling anyone what I did. Apparently, he told her and some others that he was a resident. ED cornered her in the lobby later and demanded my number. She gave him a piece of her mind, told him I was injured and that her foot would be someplace unpleasant if he or his kid ever approached me again. He backed down but told her I should be more understanding because Ink in the Water is old enough to get married and have her own children. Who stays unmarried at 24? She had him escorted off the premises. He is now banned entry for harassing residents. EK stole what she thought were mints from my purse. They were herbal laxatives. Shitty treats for little freaks. Entitled airline passenger tried helping themselves to my upgraded seat. I used to fly for work a lot. I have so many entitled people stories it stopped surprising me to run into this behavior. This is one such story. Cast, me, myself, and I equals me. EP equals entitled person. FA equals flight attendant. Being someone that used to fly a lot, I constantly was upgraded to business class, first class, or simply just upgraded seats using miles. Since this was a connection for me, I arrived and boarded later than most of the plane. As soon as I walked into the plane, I saw someone was sitting in my seat since I had been upgraded. Now, if you fly enough, someone sitting in your seat is not an uncommon occurrence. Me. Excuse me, I believe you're in my seat. EP. Does not even bother looking up at me, waves his hand dismissively at me and said, let's just switch seats so I can sit beside my wife. Me. Sure. What's your seat? EP. Snickerdoodle. Now, I don't remember exactly what seat number he said, but it was the last row of the airplane. Aisle seat, right by the bathroom. Yes, I've had to fly in those seats in the past. Remember, my assigned seat was in the first class/business class section. Now, I have switched seats with people innumerable times in my life without a second thought, even first class seats. The look of someone getting to unexpectedly ride first class is priceless. But the way this guy was behaving and what he was expecting, this was not one of those times. Me. No, I'm just going to sit in my assigned seat. Now, he finally looked at me. EP. Well, I want to sit by my wife, so I'm not moving. Me. Well, if you want to sit by your wife, I'm sure whomever is sitting way back there would be more than happy to switch seats way up here so you can sit back there with your wife. He didn't like that at all, for what could he really say at that point without sounding like a jerk? He just stared at me. Me. Now annoyed. Move. EP. I'm not moving. Ding! Darn right. I pushed the call button. FA. Yes, sir? How may I help? I hand her my ticket and say that he's sitting in my seat. She asks for his ticket, checks both tickets, sees his seat number, and in my mind at least gave him a look of, seriously? FA. Sir, you need to sit in your assigned seat. EP. I want to sit beside my wife. Well, I wasn't missing a beat and parroted my original statement about me being sure whomever was sitting back there beside him would be more than happy to switch seats and sit up here. Boy, oh boy, that obviously made him angry. FA. Looks at EP's wife and says, ma'am, would you like to switch seats so you can sit by your husband? EP's wife. No. FA. Continues in that all too familiar flight attendant voice that lets you know you have no choice. Well, sir, you have to sit in your assigned seat, so please gather your things. What a sad and pathetic sight it was seeing this grown man act like a baby, gather his things, and then sulk towards the back of the plane. Yes, his wife sat beside me that flight and didn't join her husband in the back of the plane. No, we didn't talk to or look at each other even once, which was perfectly fine with me. Imagine dismissively expecting someone to give up their first class/business class seat to sit in the very last row of the airplane by the bathroom. Try to be lazy and get me to do your job, I'll let you fail. This happened 2 decades ago. Some background. My first job was at a fast food chain. I worked hard, impressed the store manager, and got myself promoted. At the time, I was still 17, so I was promoted to team leader, with implication that I would get promoted further when I was older. I was still in high school, so I worked the evening shift, which started at 4 and ended at 12. The evening manager was a good guy, who had also worked hard and as a result had gotten promoted to a store manager position at a different location. Since they needed a manager and I wasn't old enough, they hired a new manager who I'll call Karen. So Karen is hired and starts shadowing the current night manager, learning the ropes. After 2 weeks, he departs and she's now set to take over. That's where the story really starts. I normally get in around 30 minutes early. One of my responsibilities is to make a position chart which tells the workers where they're working that night. I need to hand it off to the manager for approval before posting it. As I arrived, I noticed one of our night shift workers is already there. We'll call her Jen. She's sitting in the lobby crying and being consoled by other employees. I always found her to be a bit manic, but she was a nice girl. She had a rough home life, so I didn't hold it against her. Come to find out, she had just had a large fight with her mother, which ended with her getting kicked out. So she's effectively homeless. Good reason to be upset. I ask her if she needs the night off. She says no, she needs the money. I can't disagree and head off to get started. For the night shift, the night manager typically runs the drive-through register after day shift leaves. There are a few reasons for this. First, this means that the manager has control of the drawer and money for the entire night. This eliminates the possibility of employees having short drawers. Second, this also puts the manager as the person interacting with the customers. I lived in a college town, so drunken guys drive through all the time and just want to chat up the pretty face behind the register. Third, it gives the manager the least amount of responsibilities as far as cleanup. So given what I now know, I make a position chart and place Karen on the register and Jen on a fryer where she can get help if she can't focus. I walked to the office to hand off the chart to night manager and was surprised when he wasn't there. He normally is in at least an hour before shift to make sure everything's ready. That's when I remembered this will be Karen's first night alone. I groan inwardly. This is going to be a trial by fire kind of night. The day manager is there, but no sign of Karen. It's now 10 minutes to shift, and even day manager is wondering what's up. I fill day manager in about Jen, show her the chart, and ask if it looks good. She agrees, and I said I'll post it for now, and Karen can sign it when she gets in. I just finished posting the position chart when Karen shows up looking frazzled. She heads for the office without a word to anyone. Meanwhile, people start getting into position and ready for the shift. A few minutes later, Karen walks up, pulls my position chart, and replaces it with a new one. Again, she walks off without a word. According to the new position chart, Jen is working the drive-thru and Karen is working nothing. Her name isn't there. She has another employee working 2 positions and the whole shift working effectively 1 person short. What the F? I head to the office where Karen and day manager are talking and ask for some clarification. I explain there must be a mistake. Karen: no, that's right. Me: but you're not in a position and worker is working 2 positions. Karen: well, how am I supposed to be in charge if I'm in a position? Day shift and I just stare at her blankly. Day shift: you need to be in position. You are accounted for in the labor calculations. Karen: well, I have 6 years of management experience and I've never needed to fill a position to get the job done. Things are going to change around here. We do things my way now. Now, she just spent the last 2 weeks shadowing a manager that walked her through every step of the job. She knows she should be in position and why. This shouldn't even be a question. She just wants to spend the shift sitting in the office and everyone knows it. At this point, day shift manager and I are sharing horrified glances at each other. I tell Karen that she'll need to go get people moved around if that's what she wants, because it's her plan. She gives an exasperated sigh and heads that way. I turn to day shift and plead with her to call the store manager and let her know what's going on. She agrees. I head back to the line and start working. After a short time later, day shift pulls me aside and says that the store manager said it's Karen's shift. She's in charge. She makes the decisions. Then she leaves for the night. The shift proceeds to implode in a spectacular fashion. Less than an hour in, the employee working 2 positions is so far in the weeds that orders are taking 3 times as long to get out. The drive-thru is backed up and the guys stuck at the window waiting are trying to flirt with Jen, who's having none of it and getting more annoyed by the minute. As the wait gets longer and longer, the people are becoming more and more irritated as they get to the window and they're taking it out on Jen. Things are starting to get out of hand and Karen is nowhere to be seen. I go to the office to let her know we need help and find her watching a portable TV. I start to tell her what's going on and she cuts me off. She tells me, get back on the line, do my job, and stop bothering her. I was about to try and explain when I just thought, you know what? Screw that. Cue malicious compliance. I turned, walked back to the line, and watched the situation unfold. 30 minutes later, a car at the window was giving Jen an earful about how long she had been waiting. She calls her worthless and Jen goes off. She takes the large strawberry milkshake next to her, chucks it at the lady, and calls her a fat, ugly cunt. The lady and the inside of her car are covered in pink goo. Everything went so silent you could hear a pin drop. Then the lady starts screaming. Jen closes the window on her and walks calmly to the back. The lady peels around the front and comes in the front door screaming for a manager. I go and knock on the office door. Karen appears looking pissed and annoyed. She tries to snap at me, but I tell her she has a customer at the front asking for the manager. Karen rolls her eyes and heads towards the front, oblivious of the shitstorm that's waiting. I went and found Jen huddled in the back crying again. I tell her to get herself together and head back to the front when she's ready. I head to the line where the now purple-faced lady is screaming at Karen about dry cleaning and upholstery cleaning, and I want that girl fired. At this point, I can see that Karen has finally realized that things have gotten way out of control. She's trying to calm the lady down, but she's having none of it. Eventually, Jen comes back to the line and the lady starts in on her again, calling her all kinds of nasty things. Karen just stood there and let the lady berate her. Jen just kind of deflated in front of us. Watching her crumble like that just broke something in me. I walked over to Jen and said, "Just quit. You're better than this job, and you can do better." She looked up at me for a moment, then smiled. She lifted her chin, walked to Karen, said, "I quit," handed her name tag to her, and walked out. Karen started apologizing to the lady, who now seemed slightly mollified. Then Karen started bad-mouthing Jen to her, saying how she was a terrible employee and how we were all happy she was gone. That's when I decided I was better than this job too. I looked at Karen and said, "The only terrible employee here is you," and I walked out. 2 other employees walked out right behind me. We all met with Jen in the parking lot and went to an IHOP where we sat and speculated on how Karen was getting along. Jen told me that was the first time in her life anyone had ever stood up for her. The next day, I got a call from the store manager asking for an explanation. Apparently, Karen had struggled the entire night with service. Afterwards, she had been there most of the night trying to clean and prep for day shift and had done a piss-poor job. The story she had given the store manager was that Jen and I had planned everything with the intent to set her up because we didn't like her and wanted to see her fail. Karen had basically blamed the whole incident on Jen and I. The store manager told me she was investigating to get all sides of the story. So I told her. A few hours later, she called again and informed me that Karen was no longer employed and asked if I would be coming in that night. I asked if Jen was getting her job back. She said no. The whole shake debacle wasn't something she could overlook. I said then my answer is no. She was surprised. She tried to negotiate with me. I told her my price was Jen getting her job back. She said she couldn't do that, and that was that. If you're wondering how Jen turned out, I married her. We're very happy and have 4 children.